Good. Good evening. I'd like to welcome everybody to the March 2nd River Falls Planning Commission meeting. First thing we'll do is stand and say the Pledge of Allegiance. Pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
I like it.
Okay, can we get a roll call, please, Angie?
Sure. Holtkamp?
Here.
LaRue? Here. Moody?
Here.
Odine?
Here.
Prendergast? Woolsey?
Here.
Okay, next we have approval of the minutes from the December 7th Planning Commission meeting. Can I do these all at once, Amy? Are you okay with that? Or do you want each one separately? Okay. First we'll have approval of the minutes from the December 7th Planning Commission meeting, the December 7th Comprehensive Plan Steering Committee meeting, and the February 1st Comprehensive Plan Steering Committee meeting.
I move for the approval of all three of those minutes.
Second.
First and second, any questions or comments?
I have a comment just that I really appreciate that we got the slides from the meeting as well as the meeting minutes. I take notes, and when I saw the slides were provided to us, I'm like, oh, that's very nice. So thank you for doing that.
Anybody else, anything else? Nope. Okay, all in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Okay, now it's time for public comments. If there's anybody in the audience like to stand up and say something, now would be the time. Okay, we'll move on. First thing we'll do is Emily's going to give us a little presentation on our resolution to approve the general development plan for a municipality, or I'm sorry, for multifamily development at 131 through 141 West Cascade Avenue.
Teamwork. There you go.
Good evening, Mayor and Plan Commission. I'm Emily Shively, River Falls City Planner. And the item before you this evening is a request for approval by Girard Corporation for the general development plan for a 32-unit multifamily building. So a GDP request is a request for approval of a conceptual plan of the project. And that conceptual plan depicts the land uses, access, open space, and the location of structures and parking areas. If a GDP is approved, then the applicant prepares a specific implementation plan. And that includes more details in anticipation of construction of the project. So the SIP needs to be in substantial conformity with the GDP in order to be approved. So we're doing the general development plan, the GDP, that's the concept plan. If that moves ahead, then they'll do this SIP, the specific implementation plan, that will then move them towards construction. So the proposed development is located at 141 and 131 West Cascade Avenue, and this is the third phase of the University Falls development. Phases 1 and 2 of University Falls development were completed by Girard Corporation in 2010 and are part of the University Falls PUD. Another significant outcome of the University Falls PUD was the dedication of trail easements and the construction of a trail segment of the Kinnickinnic Trail system that provided an essential connection along Lake George. So I think if you can see my cursor, that's this trail section. And then this is phases 1 and 2. During the approval of the first two phases of University Falls, phase 3 to the east and phase 4 to the north, were addressed at a conceptual level and slated to be brought forward at a future date. And at that time, phase 3, which is again right here, was envisioned as a mixed-use building with some commercial along with residential uses, and roughly the same footprint as phases 1 and 2. You can see the building size, it's roughly the same there, and 3 stories. So what's being proposed now, after some time has passed, is a residential-only building, so no commercial component, with 32 units for this phase 3 site. The developer has also requested flexibility regarding parking and open space requirements. And staff has determined that due to the amount of time that's elapsed since 2010 and some of the changes that are being proposed by the developer, an updated GDP is warranted. So enough changes from that smaller mixed-use building to the larger residential use building, and it's been about a dozen years. So that's what we're here to do tonight. So what they're proposing, like I said, is a 32-unit multifamily apartment building. It's going to be a 4-story building made up of 5 studio units, 15 one-bedroom units, and 12 two-bedroom units. The first floor of the building, so this is the phase 3, here's phases 1 and 2. The first level of the building will have 24 covered parking spaces, in addition to a lobby, mailroom, and leasing office. And the leasing office that'll be located in this proposed building will also serve the neighboring phases 1 and 2 of University Falls. So the proposed building is fairly consistent with the multifamily residential character of the first 2 phases of University Falls, including the architectural materials, the street setback, and the average overall height. This proposed building has a flat roof in order to accommodate a solar panel array on the roof. So access to the phase 3 site will be shared with phases 1 and 2 on West Cascade Avenue. And in addition to the 24 covered parking spaces that are accessed on the north side of the building, so entering on Cascade, coming around and then entering into the parking garage on the north side, there's going to be a 28-space surface parking lot on the north and west sides of the building. And then as we're on the topic of parking, there were 6 surplus parking spaces that were constructed with phases 1 and 2 that are available for use with phase 3. However, we need to note that 3 of those spaces are located in a potential future access easement, so between phases 1, 2, and 3 and phase 4. So if phase 4 needs that access in the future, they do have their own dedicated access onto West Cascade. Those 3 parking spaces would be removed. So we've considered that in the total overall parking calculation for this project, would not include those 3 spaces. And also in working with the developer, they revised their initial plan at staff's request to place the front entrance on West Cascade. So initially they had the entrance and lobby on the north side of the building facing Lake George, but in order to have a more active streetscape, they flipped the building, so kept the architecture pretty much the same, but now we have a more lively streetscape. There's building articulation, and then the stairwell exits come out onto the sidewalk. And then staff also worked with the developer to include a pedestrian connection between West Cascade, so here, and the Kinnickinnick Trail system along the east side of the building. And there are very few locations to access the trail between the Winter Street Bridge and downtown, so this is kind of a key location to provide that access. So the staff analysis of the proposed GDP has found that the project will provide a needed housing type at a density appropriate for this particular location, which is near jobs, goods, and services, as well as parks and open space. And that's consistent with several city plans, including the comprehensive plan, the bicycle and pedestrian plan, the South Main study, the campus corridor project concept, the Kinney corridor plan, and the comprehensive housing needs analysis. So we have several plans that have all said this location would be great for some significant housing density in this location. And then with the parking, the 55 spaces, that's consistent with the amount of parking desired in those types of walkable locations. So typically, parking maximums are put in areas that are very walkable, wanting to really encourage people to take trips via walking, biking, and not relying on an automobile. And so in those cases, you'd want 1.5 spaces per unit maximum, typically. And so what's being provided with this project is 1.7 spaces. So it's above that parking maximum that's typically sat at, but just a little less than what the ordinance standard is. So staff is comfortable with that amount of parking that's being provided for this project in this location. And then finally, the project provides a needed connection to the Kinnickinnick Trail system. So with that, staff is recommending that the Plan Commission forward the resolution with a favorable recommendation. The resolution outlines 3 conditions, and those are related to the parking. to the public access easement for the pedestrian connection. And the third and final one notes that the SIP will need to be in substantial conformance with the GDP, which I mentioned at the beginning is how those two things work together. So if approved, this request will be forwarded to the City Council for consideration on March 22nd. And if the council approves the GDP at that meeting, the applicant anticipates bringing forward an SIP application for review in May. So this project will be moving forward fairly quickly. And with that, I'll turn it back to you, Mr. Mayor.
Thanks, Emily. I think what we'll do first, before we have any questions, I'll close the planning commission hearing and open up a public hearing. And if there's anybody in the audience has anything like to say about this, now would be the time to come up. Nobody's got anything? We'll close the public hearing and reopen the planning commission, and I will take a motion on this first.
Mr. Mayor, I move approval of the resolution approving the planned unit development, general development plan for the 32-unit multifamily development.
Okay, we got a first and a second. Questions?
So on the parking, excuse me, do you what's the utilization of phases 1 and 2 of the parking lot there? Have you seen access parking there? I mean, is it okay?
Yeah, come on up.
Can I ask y'all questions?
Thanks for your question. First of all, my name is Peter Gerard. I'm joined here with my brother Paul and our civil engineer, Jeff Morehouse. Your question again, sir?
Just, I was curious about parking utilization because y'all were talking about, I guess, the Union or the Depot where you have far too much parking. I'm wondering if you're seeing that with phases 1 and 2 here, that same kind of excess parking, and if there might be a way to even reduce the parking further.
Well, I anticipated some parking heartburn here, so I did a little deeper dive today on my way up. So,
I just to be sure, this is not heartburn on my part. I think there's too much parking. So
okay,
I'm always
okay.
like I am a less parking guy. So don't think I'm
now you're speaking
how much parking you have.
Now you're speaking our language.
Yeah, no, I'm less parking.
I guess your question is why are we building so much parking?
Yeah, could you get away with less? That's what I'm trying to get to. Sorry, I'm not very
well. I'll just run through some numbers here at City Station, and I drove through the lot tonight. If everyone could hear me, I drove through the lot tonight on my way up here, and there's 36 stalls between City Station and Depot. There was 8 cars parked in that space tonight. Now, our manager, and I've had a few conversations with her, Laura Frost, she manages both these buildings for us. She actually says in City Station we have vacant parking in the garage. Now we charge for that, but it's a reasonable charge. And still, usually the lot on any given day is maybe half occupied. But to go below, we're at a 0.75, I believe, or a 1.75. That's really our comfort level. Because remember, we have students right next door. If you end up with maybe, say 10% too much parking, that's not a bad thing. At City Station and Depot, we probably have, 30% too much parking.
And there's not really street parking there either.
So does that help?
Need to want to under. Yeah.
On
Cascade here, there's not street parking. So if you undercount it, you're out of luck there.
Yeah.
Yeah. No, I just was curious about that. So no, that's fine.
Chris, that's a really good question. Paul Gerard. So I think where you were going was the students that we serve at University Falls, a totally different demographic than we're after now. We're after a younger professional. So we're seeing that reduced rate in parking. Yeah. Plus, we're also going to, locating this in your core, we're reducing the amount of parking that we think that is going to be needed. Plus, we also are accommodating bicycles in the basement for a specific area. So, and I think you have an ordinance that reduces your parking requirement if you have bikes in that. And one step further, 1300 has got over 30 vacant parking stalls. And I think where the ordinance, yeah, it's quite a bit. where the ordinance was driven was really, this is a university community. So they're used to, every student has a car and then there's a junk car, you know, the one that doesn't move. So we're not going to have that demographic. So does that answer your question?
Yeah, and like I said, I'm all for less parking. So I think it's
And to
great.
Paul's point, we're after a completely different audience here. Young professionals, retirees, people that really want to park their car, some not even have a car, and walkable to all of the city services. That's the beauty of this site, the beauty of our other site here at the city station and depot as well.
Yeah, no, I think it's great. I like it.
Walkable is a good thing.
If I may.
Yeah, go ahead.
This is just a comment, but I would advocate for some charging stations in your parking lot.
Yep. Very good point. And Emily did lay out that we will have solar on this building. I think you've seen from our other buildings in town that we're very pro solar and very pro. So thank you.
Good idea.
Anybody else have any questions?
I just have a question, maybe for staff, and just the history of, I noticed that they're going for tax increment financing on this property, and we've had a history of that in residential. I always kind of look at TIF districts as for commercial, and I don't know if you can give me an example, or was a previous development by Gerard in a TIF district?
Yeah, actually phases 1 and 2 are in a TIF district, so this is just phase 3 in that district. Yeah.
All right, and that probably be more evident about what the circumstances are, the attributes of that as we get into the next phase of going forward.
Yes, so we're still negotiating on the developers agreement, but there's substantial things that could be TIF funded, such as the demolition of the homes that are currently there.
That's kind of what I was thinking. What are the limits of that for TIF on that? But we can discuss that as that moves forward.
Yeah.
So, okay. Thanks.
Anybody else?
I have a few.
Yep.
With regard to the energy efficiency, I know this is a general plan right now, but I would like to see some more specifics with regard to low flow toilets and showers and energy efficient windows and insulation. I now know that you are going to put solar. At first, it sounded like you're prepared to put solar, but I'm glad to see that the plan is to put solar on there. Will you allow pets?
Our pet policy is generally, it depends.
Okay. Just given the demographic you're going for, because that was going to be one of my questions. Are there still going to be college kids? But if you're talking the older person who's an empty nester, a lot of times they have pets.
Yeah, they do have pets. And to answer your question as well, we do plan to utilize structural insulated panels on this building, which will give the wall sections an even higher R rating. So,
and the appliances and all that.
Everything that we've been building for the last 5 years, low flow toilets, low flow valves for showers. I mean, we've even looked at a gray water system in another location, but you'll see a lot of energy efficiency with our
It just makes sense.
Yeah.
It's just economic sense, and you know, green energy is a wonderful thing.
Yeah. And I just want to make sure, I think this was made pretty clear, but the trail that's going from Cascade down to the Lake George Trail, that's going to be public, so that if I'm at the Dairy Queen and I want to cut through and
There would be
eat
a
my ice
recorded,
cream while I...
a recorded public easement. Yep.
Okay, that's great. I think I'm done. Thank you.
Okay, anybody else, anything? No? So got a first and second, all in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Okay, thanks, guys. Okay, next we'll move on to, what do we have? We have our director's report. Amy will give us a little rundown on what's happening.
Yes, thank you. Emily said that would work. I haven't been up to this podium yet.
Thank you.
All good. Yep, got her. So thank you. Just wanted to give you a few updates from the director's report. A notice that March 24th will be the next Comprehensive Plan Steering Committee meeting for you folks. We did change that from the 17th to the 24th. I didn't hear that there was issue from anyone on that date, so if there is, just go ahead and circle back with myself or Emily. That would be 6:30. Yes. So then the April meeting date falls on Tuesday the 5th, I believe, which is also our election day. We tend to run into this. So the 6th is our Bike Ped Committee for that planning process. So we're looking at the 7th right now. I'm curious if that looks okay on folks' calendar. I see some
Good
heads
with me.
nodding.
Yeah.
Okay. If you determine that there's an issue with the 7th, again, please let staff know. Otherwise, we'll plan on that as well. I hope you noticed in the director's report, we've got the 2022 major projects list there. So that has changed from the 2021. So hopefully you took a look at that. If you've got questions as we go forward, you can always ask us about those. And just a follow-up from the condominium subdivision ordinance that came through, that was passed by council. They did give it a delay date, so it'll go into effect May 11th of 2022, and that was a request by a couple of the projects up on the north side in order for them to get their condominium plats in time before our ordinance came into effect. So if you have questions about that, you can go ahead and reach out on that as well. But just a follow-up on the council process that I like to provide you sometimes. So next month, we're looking at the Community Development Annual Report will be in your packet. And for items on the Plan Commission agenda, we've got the South Point General Development Plan that we think will be coming through at that time. So that's what we're looking forward to. Beyond that, I'll be happy to answer any questions you might have.
I'm going to be following this code enforcement ordinance modification and community education plan, because I think that's fabulous that you guys are moving forward to do it. That there are cars with the DeSanctis Park. They're parking in DeSanctis Park. And then you're kind of like, no, you guys are supposed to be going up there. There shouldn't be cars parked here at 2 o'clock in the morning. Not supposed to be here. So it not just that, but there's a lot of code enforcement things that I think if we have the code and educating the people, first let them know why we do this and that kind of thing. But I'm following that one. Good.
And just a curiosity, the sidewalk on, I guess, my neighborhood, very personal interest here, along Kennedy Street from, I guess, the 1300 South Main that's going to go to that park there. Any timeline on that?
Construction this year. We're just looking to finalize design right now. So there'll be more information coming. Yeah.
Anybody else got anything for Amy? No? Thank you, Amy.
All right.
Okay.
Would you like a motion to adjourn? I'd like to make a motion to adjourn.
I'll second that motion.
All in favor of adjourning?
Aye.
Opposed? We are adjourned.
Yay.